2014 in Los Angeles, a young couple was looking for a domestic helper through Craigslist. They contacted a man offering services and invited him into their home. However, when the helper arrived, it turned out that he was a criminal who had lured them into the house to rob them and hurt them. The couple's names were Jake and Mia. They had been married for 2 years and lived in a cozy apartment in downtown LA. Jake worked as a software engineer and Mia was a freelance graphic designer. They were busy and successful, but they also wanted to have some free time to enjoy their life together. That's why they decided to hire a domestic helper who could clean their apartment, do their laundry, and run some errands for them. They posted an ad on Craigslist looking for someone reliable, trustworthy, and affordable. They received many responses, but one of them caught their attention. It was from a man named Tom, who claimed to have experience in housekeeping and offered to work for $15 an hour. He also said he had references and a background check. Jake and Mia thought he sounded perfect and decided to give him a chance. They arranged to meet him on a Saturday morning at their apartment. They were excited to finally have some help around the house and hoped that Tom would be as good as he seemed. They waited for him at the door, ready to welcome him and show him around. Tom arrived on time, carrying a backpack and a duffel bag. He was a tall, muscular man with short brown hair and a stubble beard. He wore jeans, a t-shirt, and a baseball cap. He smiled at Jake and Mia and introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Tom. Nice to meet you," he said. "Hi, Tom," with Jake and Mia. "Come on in," Jake said. They invited him inside and offered him some water. Tom accepted and thanked them. He looked around the apartment with interest, noting the furniture, the appliances, the decorations, and the valuables. "So, this is your place? It's very nice," he said. "Thank you. We like it here," Mia said. "We're glad you're here too. We really need some help with the housework," Jake said. "No problem. I'm happy to help," Tom said. He put his backpack and duffel bag on the floor near the door and followed Jake and Mia to the living room. They sat on the couch and started to talk about the details of the job. "So, Tom, tell us more about yourself. How long have you been doing this kind of work?" Jake asked. "Well, I've been doing it for about 3 years now. I started when I lost my job at the factory and couldn't find anything else. I figured I could make some money by helping people with their chores," Tom said. "I see. And do you have any references we can call?" Mia asked. "Sure, I have a few." "Here are their numbers," Tom said. He took out his phone and showed them a list of contacts on his screen. Jake and Mia glanced at them briefly and nodded. "Oh, that looks good," Jake said. "And what about your background check? Do you have a copy of that?" Mia asked. "Of course. Here it is," Tom said. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded paper. He handed it to Mia, who opened it and looked at it carefully. It was a document from a reputable company that stated that Tom had no criminal record or outstanding warrants. "Wow, this is impressive," Mia said. "Thank you. I like to keep things clean," Tom said. He smiled innocently, but inside he was laughing. He knew that the document was fake and that he had paid someone online to make it for him. He also knew that the references were fake too, and that they were actually his accomplices who would vouch for him if anyone called them. Tom was not a domestic helper at all. He was a con artist who used Craigslist to find unsuspecting victims who would let him into their homes. He would then rob them of their money, jewelry, electronics, and anything else he could find. Sometimes he would also hurt them, or worse, if they resisted or tried to call for help. He had done this many times before, and he was good at it. He knew how to act friendly and trustworthy, how to gain people's confidence, and how to strike when they least expected it. He had a knife and a gun hidden in his duffel bag, ready to use if necessary. He had chosen Jake and Mia as his next targets because they seemed wealthy, naive, and easy to fool. He had seen their ad on Craigslist and contacted them right away. He had made up a story about himself and sent them fake documents. He had also done some research on them online and found out their names, their jobs, their hobbies, and their routines. He knew everything he needed to know to manipulate them and take advantage of them. He was planning to rob them today as soon as he got the chance. He was waiting for the right moment to make his move, when they were distracted or off guard. He was confident that he would succeed and that he would get away with it. He was wrong. Jake and Mia were not as naive as they seemed. They were actually undercover cops who worked for the cybercrime unit of the LAPD. They had been investigating a series of robberies and assaults that had been linked to Craigslist ads for domestic helpers. They had noticed a pattern in the crimes and had set up a trap for the suspect. They had posted a fake ad on Craigslist, pretending to be a young couple looking for a helper. They had used fake names, fake photos, and fake information. They had also rented a fake apartment that was wired with hidden cameras and microphones. They had prepared everything to catch the criminal in the act. They had received many responses to their ad, but they had filtered them out until they found the one they were looking for. It was from Tom, who matched the description and the modus operandi of the suspect. They had contacted him and arranged to meet him at their apartment. They had pretended to be interested in hiring him and had played along with his lies. They had checked his fake references and his fake background check. They had acted friendly and trusting, but they were actually suspicious and alert. They knew that he was going to rob them and hurt them. They knew that he had a knife and a gun in his bag. They knew that he was waiting for the right moment to attack them. They were ready for him. They waited for him to make his move, while they secretly signaled their backup team outside the apartment. They waited for him to reveal his true intentions, while they secretly recorded everything he said and did. They waited for him to show his true face, while they secretly smiled at each other. They waited for him to make his mistake, while they secretly prepared to make their arrest. In 2015, in the city of Los Angeles, a young man named William Baldwin was browsing Craigslist for rare items. He was a collector of antiques and oddities, and he liked to find bargains online. He came across an ad that caught his eye, selling a collection of ancient coins, jewelry, and artifacts. Very rare and valuable. Contact me for details. William was intrigued by the ad. He had always been fascinated by ancient history and cultures, and he wondered what kind of treasures the seller had. He decided to send him an email, asking for more information and pictures. The seller replied quickly, saying that he had inherited the collection from his grandfather, who was an archaeologist and explorer. He said that he needed money urgently, and that he was willing to sell the whole collection for a very low price. He attached some photos of the items, which looked authentic and impressive. William was amazed by what he saw. He recognized some of the coins as Roman, Greek, and Persian, and some of the jewelry as Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and Celtic. He also saw some artifacts that he couldn't identify, but that looked ancient and mysterious. William felt a surge of excitement. He thought that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire such a rare and valuable collection. He replied to the seller, saying that he was very interested in buying the items, and that he wanted to see them in person before making a deal. He asked the seller where he lived and when he could visit him. The seller said that he lived in a house in Compton, a neighborhood in South Los Angeles. He said that he was available anytime, and that he would give him his address and phone number if he agreed to come. He also warned him not to tell anyone about the collection, or to bring anyone with him, for security reasons. William agreed to the seller's conditions. He thought that it was reasonable to be cautious about such a valuable collection. He also thought that Compton was not too far from his apartment in Hollywood, and that he could drive there easily. He told the seller that he would come the next day around noon. The seller gave him his address and phone number, and told him to call him when he arrived. The next day, William got ready to go to Compton. He took his car keys, his wallet, his phone, and a backpack where he planned to put the items after buying them. He didn't tell anyone where he was going or what he was doing. He thought that it was better to keep it a secret until he had the collection safely in his possession. He drove to Compton, following the directions that the seller had given him. He arrived at a street that looked run down and deserted. He saw graffiti on the walls, trash on the ground, and bars on the windows. He felt a bit nervous, but he tried to ignore it. He thought that maybe the seller lived in a nice house behind a fence or a gate. He parked his car near the address that the seller had given him. It was a small, dilapidated house with a rusty metal door and a broken window. William felt a pang of doubt. He wondered if this was really the place where the seller lived, or if he had made a mistake. He took out his phone and called the seller's number. A voice answered. "Hello. Hi, this is William Baldwin. I'm here for the collection." "Ah, yes. William Baldwin. I've been expecting you." The voice sounded friendly and cheerful. "Great. Where are you?" "I'm inside the house. Come on in." William hung up his phone and got out of his car. He locked it and put his backpack on his shoulders. He walked towards the house and knocked on the metal door. The door opened slightly, and a man peeked out. "William Baldwin." "Yes." The man smiled. "Welcome. I'm glad you made it." He opened the door wider and gestured for William to enter. "Come on in." William stepped inside the house. He immediately regretted it. As soon as he crossed the threshold, he felt a sharp pain in his head. He saw stars. He heard a loud thud. He fell to the floor. He blacked out. When William woke up, he found himself in a dark basement. He was tied to a chair with wires attached to his body. His head throbbed with pain, and he struggled to regain his bearings. Panic surged through him as he realized the gravity of the situation. The seller he had trusted had turned out to be a member of a dangerous gang, and he had fallen right into their trap. William strained against his restraints, but the wires digging into his skin held him firmly in place. The basement was dimly lit, revealing a grimy and unsettling environment. The air was heavy with the scent of dampness and neglect. Fear gripped his heart as he wondered what the gang members intended to do with him. Moments later, a door at the top of the stairs creaked open, and a group of men descended into the basement. They wore menacing expressions, their eyes filled with malice. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, approached William with a cold, calculating gaze. Well, 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 look what we have here," the gang leader sneered, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Mr. Baldwin, isn't it? You thought you were so clever, trying to get your hands on our treasures." William's voice trembled as he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Please, I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to buy the collection." The gang leader laughed mockingly, his tone devoid of sympathy. "Oh, we know what you wanted, all right. But you see, Mr. Baldwin, these treasures belong to us. They're part of our lucrative operation, and we can't have nosy outsiders like you interfering." Fear mingled with frustration as William realized the dire consequences of his ill-fated decision. He had walked straight into the clutches of criminals, and now he had to find a way to escape before it was too late. Desperation fueled his resolve, and he mustered the courage to face his captors. "Please let me go. I won't say a word about this to anyone. I promise. Just give me a chance to leave." The gang leader's eyes narrowed, considering William's plea. He turned to his cohorts, exchanging silent but meaningful glances. After a tense moment, he finally nodded. "Fine, Baldwin. We'll let you go on one condition," the gang leader declared, his voice dripping with sinister intent. "You will pay us a hefty sum of money. If you fail to deliver the amount we demand within a week, we won't hesitate to come after you." Relief and dread warred within William as he realized he had been given a slim chance at escape. While the prospect of paying a large sum was daunting, it was a small price to pay for his freedom and safety. He nodded fervently, his voice filled with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes to meet your demands. Just let me go, and I'll find a way to get the money." The gang leader's smile widened, satisfaction glimmering in his eyes. "Good. We'll be watching you closely, Mr. Baldwin. Remember, if you try to outsmart us or involve the authorities, your life will be in immediate danger." With those chilling words, the gang members untied William from the chair, albeit leaving the wires attached to his body as a reminder of their control over him. As they escorted him out of the basement, William's mind raced, his thoughts consumed by escape plans and the formidable task of obtaining the extortion money. Once he was released, he emerged onto the desolate street, free to move, but still a captive of the gang's demands. Determined to reclaim his life and end this nightmare, William embarked on a perilous journey, navigating a treacherous world of deception and criminality, all while desperately searching for a solution that would save him from the clutches of the dangerous gang. In 2016, in Edison, New Jersey, a young man named Kevin Lee had a passion for collecting rare coins. He had inherited a valuable collection from his grandfather, who had been a coin dealer for many years. Kevin loved to admire the shiny metal pieces, each with its own story and subject matter. He often browsed online forums and websites to learn more about the hobby and find new pieces for his collection. One day, he saw an ad on Craigslist for a coin he had always wanted to own. A 1913 coin, one of the rarest and most expensive coins in the world. It was known that there were only 5 such coins, and they were worth millions of dollars. The seller claimed to have one of them and offered to sell it for a reasonable price. Kevin was skeptical, but he was curious. He contacted the seller and asked for details. The seller, who called himself John, told him that he had inherited the coin from an uncle who was also a collector. He said he needed money urgently and was willing to part with the coin for $100,000. He also said he had a certificate of authenticity and other documents proving the coin was authentic. He invited Kevin to come to his home in Newark to examine the coin and close the deal. Kevin was tempted by the offer, but cautious at the same time. He knew that there were many frauds and counterfeiters in the coin market, and that meeting a stranger with such a large sum of cash could risk his life. He decided to make inquiries about John and his coin. He searched the internet for any information about him or his uncle, but found nothing. He also checked the serial number of the certificate of authenticity that John had emailed him, but it did not match any entry in the official databases. He concluded that John was lying and that his coin was probably a fake. He decided to confront John and expose his fraud. He called him and told him that he knew his coin was counterfeit and that he had reported him to the authorities. He expected John to hang up or swear at him, but instead he heard a calm voice that said, "Listen, Kevin, I know who you are and where you live. I also know that you have a very nice coin collection at home. If you don't want anything bad to happen to you or your coins, you come to me tomorrow at noon with $100,000 in cash. Don't try to call the police or anyone else. It's your only chance to save yourself." Kevin was shocked and frightened by this threat. He realized that John had somehow hacked into his computer and found out his personal information. He wondered how he could get out of this situation without endangering himself and his coins. He decided to follow John's plan, but with a few modifications. He went to his bank and withdrew $100,000 in cash, but he also took some counterfeit bills that he had bought online for fun. He mixed them with the real ones and put them in a suitcase. He also took a hidden camera and microphone that he bought for his hobby of making videos of the coins. He hoped to record John's confession and use it as evidence against him. The next day, he drove to Newark and followed John's directions to his house. It was a ramshackle building in a shady neighborhood. He parked his car on the street and took his suitcase with him. He knocked on the door and waited. The door opened, and he saw a man who matched John's description. Tall, bald, muscular, with a scar on his cheek. He was wearing a leather jacket and jeans. He looked at Kevin with a smirk and said, "Welcome, Kevin. I'm glad you came. Come on in." He grabbed Kevin's suitcase and pulled him inside. Kevin nervously followed him, trying to act calm. The house was dark and dirty, with broken furniture and trash lying everywhere. Kevin saw several other men sitting on the couch watching television. They all looked like gangsters, with tattoos, piercings, and guns. They looked at Kevin with curiosity and hostility. John led Kevin over to a table on which stood a metal box with a lock on it. "Here it is," he said, opening the drawer and pulling out a plastic case with a coin inside. Kevin looked closely at the coin. It really was a 1913 coin, but he could tell it wasn't real. It had some flaws and inconsistencies that only an expert could notice. "Here it is," John said proudly. "What is it?" asked Kevin sarcastically. "This is the real thing," John said confidently. "No, it's not," Kevin said bluntly. "What do you mean?" asked John angrily. "I mean it's a fake. It's a very good fake, but it's still a fake. I can prove it to you." Kevin pulled out his camera and microphone and showed them to John. "I've been recording this whole conversation. I also have a device that can scan the coin and verify its authenticity. Would you like to see it?" John's face turned red with anger. He realized he had been deceived and exposed. "You little bastard," he shouted. "You think you're smart, don't you?" Kevin remained calm despite the rising tension in the room. He knew that his safety depended on keeping his wits about him. "I'm just trying to protect myself," Kevin replied, his voice steady. "You threatened me, and I wanted to have evidence in case something happened." The other gang members watched the confrontation unfold, uncertain of how to react. John, seething with anger, took a step closer to Kevin, his fists clenched. "Hand over that recording," John demanded, his voice laced with menace. Kevin hesitated for a moment, weighing his options. He knew that complying might defuse the situation, but it would also mean giving up his only leverage. He decided to take a calculated risk. "I can delete it right here, right now," Kevin offered, his tone placating. "But I need your word that you'll let me leave unharmed and won't bother me again." John stared at Kevin, his eyes narrowing. The room fell into an uneasy silence as the other gang members awaited their leader's response. After what felt like an eternity, John finally nodded. "Deal," John said gruffly, his voice filled with reluctant acceptance. Kevin reached into his pocket and retrieved a memory card from his camera. With a swift motion, he deleted the recording, erasing any evidence that could incriminate John or his gang. It was a gamble, but Kevin hoped that their desire to avoid police attention would keep them true to their word. "Now let me go," Kevin requested, his voice firm but respectful. John motioned to one of his henchmen, who opened the door, allowing Kevin to exit. Kevin walked out of the house, his heart pounding with relief. He hurriedly made his way to his car, glancing over his shoulder to ensure no one was following him. Once safely inside his vehicle, Kevin let out a sigh of relief. He knew he had narrowly escaped a dangerous situation, but he also realized that his coin collection might still be at risk. Determined to protect his prized possessions, he decided to seek professional advice and assistance. Kevin contacted the local authorities, providing them with a detailed account of the incident and the information he had gathered on John and his gang. The police assured him that they would investigate the matter and do everything in their power to ensure his safety. In the following weeks, Kevin took additional security measures to safeguard his coin collection. He installed a state-of-the-art alarm system, reinforced the doors and windows of his home, and joined a local coin collectors group to network with others who shared his passion. Through the group, he learned about reputable dealers and experts who could help him authenticate his coins and provide guidance on future purchases. The experience had taught Kevin a valuable lesson about the risks involved in selling valuable items privately. From that point forward, he'd vowed to conduct transactions through reputable channels, such as established dealers and auction houses. He also became an advocate for educating others about the potential dangers of online marketplaces and the importance of personal safety in such transactions. Although the incident had shaken Kevin to the core, he refused to let it dampen his passion for coin collecting. With newfound knowledge and a heightened sense of caution, he continued to pursue his hobby, cherishing the stories behind each coin and the history they represented. And as he expanded his collection over the years, he always remembered the valuable lesson he had learned from his encounter with John's gang. That knowledge, caution, and the support of a trusted community were the keys to protecting what he held dear.